Hello, everyone. My name's Doug Mayer. I'm the founder of Run the Alps. We're here in Chamonix, France, and I am here with two of the wonderful staff and partners of Run the Alps, Emily Geldard,
Hi.
who is in charge of guides, tour planning. Introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, a few bits and bobs. Self-guided materials, general planning, and we all kind of work together to some degree, don't we?
Yeah, that's Emily.
Yeah.
And with us from Ogden, Utah, here on our screen is Stephanie Lefferts. Steph. All of you know Steph now. We know that. You've communicated with her. And Steph, you want to tell us a little bit about what you do in the Run the Alps world?
Yeah, so mine's all logistics. I book your hotels, luggage transfers, anything, answer all your questions to do with getting to and from the tour, what's going to happen on the tour, that sort of stuff.
Steph is very busy this time of year, and it's also fairly early in Ogden. Afternoon here in Chamonix, so she's waking up, but seems fairly awake. Thank you, Steph. We're going to go through top questions that we get, that Steph and Emily each get, and then we're going to share some of our favorite tips, and we're also going to obviously go through the questions that we received from everyone. And we got a lot of really good questions, thank you. And we hope it'll be useful to everyone else who's coming on a trip too, whether you emailed us a question or not. So dive right in here. We're gonna start with Steph and Emily's, each of their top 5 questions. So you're here, why don't you start?
I think one of the big questions is about what sort of gears we need for the running.
Right.
So that's going to be linked into the weather as well, which I'll also talk about later. But basically, you need to have a running vest that's between 6 and 12 litres, I'd say.
We have one here, and this is a big surprise, actually. We can show, you know what we're going to show off, Steph? This is
Nice.
a new 12-liter vest, that partnership that's coming up this summer with Salomon. So that's a 12-liter vest.
Yeah, 12 litres. You shouldn't need to go any bigger than that. That's going to have enough space for your extra warm layer, like a puffy, your waterproof jacket, and perhaps pants as well. You won't necessarily need to carry them every day. The guide can tell you in the morning, or you can check out the weather forecast. But you need to have them here with you to put in. So that's the clothing and the vest. Apart from that, it would be good to have accessories for the heat. So I'm thinking sun cream, sunglasses, and a cap or sun hat. And then for when it's cold as well. So gloves, a warm hat, such as that.
Such as this one, especially if you're low on hair.
Yeah, you need to do what you can. And a buff as well is always really good.
We should say too, all of this is in your guide to trail running in the Alps.
Yeah.
So that's always your first go-to resource for information.
Yeah.
We happen to have a handy copy right here in case you forgot what it looks like.
Yeah.
Grab that out of the little briefcase that you got when you signed up for your trip.
So everything's in there, but the one other thing I'd say is water containers. So capacity for 2 litres of water for occasionally if there's a day where you're not going to be able to pick up more water. Those are the main things that everyone needs to think about.
What about filters?
Filters, good question. As it stands, there's enough water fountains around, and also everywhere we go in the Alps, any of the tap water is entirely drinkable. So we have plenty of opportunities to fill up on water throughout the day generally. If you're doing a self-guided tour, you may not have the guide there to tell you exactly where to get the water. So maybe if you want to be super careful, you could bring a filter so that you can get water from streams. But generally in the Alps, there's enough water around. And if you've got that 2 litre capacity, it should last you until there's a next chance to fill up on water.
You know, I might say where possible to avoid a stream. I've been in a situation of going around a corner or climbing up later and then seeing a flock of sheep or something like that. And you're like, oh, glad I didn't grab water from that stream.
There's normally enough water sources such as a pipe coming out that's clean water or fountains, even in the high mountains. So, and the self-guided notes always mark where those are as well, where the safe drinking water is. So, shouldn't be necessary.
Steph, let's cruise along. What's one of your top 5?
Adding hotel nights before or after your tour. So if you want to come early or stay longer, we can help you with that. We can give you recommendations for places to check out. If it's in the same town where the tour is, or even if you're staying in like Geneva or Zurich before flying home, we have a ton of information for that. And then when it comes to adding on nights at the tour hotel, that's something that a service that we provide for you at cost. It just makes it easier for the hotels. They don't get confused, and it avoids like minimum night stay requirements and ensures that you can stay in the same room for the whole duration of your stay. So if that's something you're considering, you're interested in, want to do, just reach out to us. The sooner we can add those on, the better, because hotels are definitely pretty full already.
It's going to be busy. And maybe this is the moment for our shameless plug of the Hub Chamonix, which is our partner company in Chamonix. If you're looking for a place to stay, we have a place. You can see it online at thehubchamonix.com. And it's a wonderful little hub for trail runners. We can just leave it at that. You can check it out if you want. So great, thanks, Steph. Yeah, really good points. Really important to go through Steph for extra nights. Another
Next,
one?
Yeah, mine's leading on from what gear to bring. We get a lot of questions about running poles. In the Alps we use them. Everyone uses them. We have such long ascents and descents that they're really going to make your life a lot easier. In terms of what sort of running poles to bring, foldable ones are definitely best. You can get non-foldable ones, but it's going to make traveling quite difficult, especially by plane. And we recommend, you have to put your poles in your hold baggage on the plane as well. So having foldable ones is good. Some particular poles Run the Alps uses the Black Diamond Z poles, the carbon foldable ones. Lecky poles also do really, really good range as well.
Yeah.
If you don't want to bring poles, you can borrow some off us as well.
Yeah.
Every trip has the possibility to borrow poles. We've got a big range, so we should be able to find the right size for every guest we have on our tours as well. But they definitely are worth bringing, and if you can, worth trying out beforehand just to get an idea of how to use them. Don't worry if you can't, your guide can give you all the tips you need, but if it could be part of your training as well, that's even better.
Wonderful. And trail running specific poles too, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes, which are a lot lighter.
Yeah,
and they
light.
have a very barely their snow basket, not a big basket on the bottom.
You're not going to look like a backcountry skier.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Good.
that's poles for now.
Ogden, Utah, can we go for another question?
I get a lot of questions about booking flights. With that, it's pretty straightforward. As soon as your tour is confirmed, I'll let you know, and then you're good to book flights. We ask you to wait for a few reasons. One is just making sure that we can get all the hotel confirmations. And then the second is that we've actually put together really detailed recommendations depending on what tour you're going on. So we give you tons of information about what airports to fly into, and then times, whether you're meeting a group or whether you're going self-guided, if you have connections to get to your final destination, stuff like that. So we just want to make sure we can get you all that good info before you start booking. If you do need to book sooner, just reach out to us so we can have that conversation beforehand.
And for those of you, when you're booking flights and when you arrive, you'll get, and you probably already have this, one of our aid station documents, right, which will have supporting information on traveling, from the airport to wherever you're going, whatever trip you're on.
Next question is about food. First of all, what do we eat during the day? So to start with, all the hotels and huts put out a really good buffet breakfast. So there'll be cereals, breads, normally ham, cheese, sometimes eggs, fruit. After that, we set off, and if you're on a guided trip, the guide's going to provide a selection of trail snacks, so some bars, nuts. We've got all sorts of products to give you out on the trail for the day. Generally, there's a chance to stop somewhere as well. We're lucky to have on most of the runs we do in the Alps some sort of mountain refuge, which is a mountain hut where we can get coffees, maybe some pie, soup, whatever. So there's going to be plenty of food, but it's generally not the case of we have a big sit-down lunch. You know, we're running, we don't want to eat.
No one wants to run after the big sit-down croûte de fromage,
no,
right?
Exactly. So, but on guided trips, yes, the guide will give you a range of snacks, and also make sure you know if there's a store coming up where you can top up any of your specific requirements. Talking of those requirements, for the evening dinners in the hotels or restaurants we use, they're able to cater for food intolerances or food allergies, such as gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian. You just obviously need to let us know when you're booking, and we can tell the hotel in good time. If there's some very specific food requirements you have, it's always a safe bet to bring any extra supplements with you if that's at all possible. But generally, the restaurants we use are able to provide what we need for.
You've now given a very balanced and thoughtful approach, which is what we expect. I will now say, if I can, you know exactly what I'm going to say, right? You do. Two French words. Go ahead. Tarts? What?
Tarte myrtille.
Tarte myrtille. You can also, I am here to vouch, you can run all day long on blueberry pie. From hut to hut to hut to hut. I have done it for the whole Ventimiglia tour was entirely on tarte myrtille. 50 kilometers in a day, no problem. I'm not going to recommend it. That might be for your second or third on the Alps trip.
It's good to really make the most of the local foods.
Exactly.
We really like to do that.
That's what I told myself every 2 hours.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that sums it up.
So now that you've arrived in the Alps, how do you get to your tour? For anyone coming into Chamonix and or to Geneva heading to Chamonix, we book your shuttles for you. So for that, I just need you to send me your flight information. If you are heading off into Switzerland, you'll be going by train and possibly bus. And the Swiss are incredibly efficient. So we've put together an aid station document all about how that operates, and should get you right to your destination. And then if you are coming into the Dolomites, you have a ton of airborne options, which again, we've put together an aid station document explaining what those options are, what train to catch, the numbers, the connections, how long it takes. So super detailed to get you to that final destination. Again, with any questions there, just let us know. We all travel around the Alps quite extensively on public transportation. So I think we have firsthand experiences and can help you out that way.
What's the weather like in the Alps? Today it's quite rainy, but in the summer we have trips from June till end of September generally, and over those months the weather itself is fairly similar in terms of the chance of rainfall, which is likely to be, I don't know, a couple of days a week on average. There would be some rain, I guess. There might be plenty of weeks where there's no rain, or you might have a few days of rain on your trip as well. In terms of temperature, of course, it's getting a bit warmer here, like in many places. July and August are the warmest months. Down in the valleys, it can be over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Up in the mountains in July and August, it's going to often be in the high, just converting from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So 20
80s.
Degrees, 80s, yeah. So it can be pretty hot.
So.
Hence what I was saying about the gear you've got to bring in terms of sun hat, some sun defense. Say June and September, there could be snowfall at about 7,000 feet where a lot of our runs go up to. So yeah, you're likely to be running in shorts and t-shirt, but you do need the long sleeve layer, the warm layer and waterproofs and the extra accessories, gloves, hats, just in case. Because we're going from very low elevation to much higher elevation, just that alone is going to mean it's a lot colder and windier potentially up here, because we've got such a change in one day only.
And
so
you know, one thing that's fresh on my mind from last summer was we had several heat waves last year, which I wouldn't say it's a first. I remember maybe 10 years ago, it was a really hot summer or two.
But it's more common.
But it's more common. So it's on my mind for our trips. So,
yeah, so I actually use, it may not be, I've been told, the most trendy item, but the caps with like the desert flap. Because I really feel the heat. And that can be a good thing to keep the heat off your neck as well. And also, having some lighter coloured clothes as well, because the black and dark colours really absorb the heat. So if you're worried about the heat, there are a few things you can do. Having good headgear, having sun cream, of course, making sure you have plenty of capacity for water and bringing electrolytes. I'm kind of moving off topic now, but talking about the weather to recap, it's fairly warm, but up high especially, it can get quite cold, so you'll need to have a jacket. And
I feel like it's often that way on our, particularly on our Tour Mont Blanc trips. We'll have the gathering in Chamonix. It'll be a beautiful warm day, and everyone will be thinking, really? You're telling me it's going to be cold up there? And by the end of the trip, they're like, oh yeah, we went over Grand Col Ferret, and that was chilly, and there were a few snow flurries or something like that. Right?
It can snow in July and August even. It doesn't mean the snow is going to last for long, but that gives you an idea of the fact it can get cold. So if you follow the packing list that we provide, you'll be fine, and then the guide can tell you before each day what exactly you need for that day. But generally, warm and sunny.
And if you're self-guided, we'll give you plenty of information on different apps that are good that we like to use here in the Alps to get a really updated weather forecast.
Yeah, and the weather forecasts here, that's a good point, are very accurate actually, because we're quite far inland as well. The weather's quite stable, so the forecasts are very accurate here. Yeah.
Steph?
The forecast is accurate with certain apps though, right? It's not accurate using like Apple Weather or the weather apps here in the US.
I'm really glad you mentioned
that. Good point. The ones we use, which we can share, the Chamonix Meteo, for example, is accurate.
Yeah, we this always happens this time of year, right? I know exactly why you brought this up, because when Emily talked about it, raining a couple times during the week, often it's like a shower maybe that comes and goes. But on Apple's app, it shows this rain. And people will message us and say, it's been raining for 10 days. Should I bring like heavy rain gear? And we're like, no, it's been beautiful actually. So don't trust your phone app for the weather in Chamonix, France, or Grindelwald or Zermatt, no matter where you're going. Steph, what's next on your list?
So luggage allowances, so along the lines of what to bring. So everyone is confirmed for one bag per person on their tour. I know a lot of people traveling internationally tend to have a little bag with them on the plane too, since it's so long. So ideally you want to make sure that you can fit that into your other luggage that's going to be moved around. If you are going to have extra luggage, if you're on the TMB, it's pretty simple. You can leave it at the hotel in Chamonix and they'll store it for you. If you're on another tour where you're going point to point, you need to just let us know how many other bags you'll have. We do pay per bag, and most of these transport companies also provide the specific number of baggage tags that they expect to be moving. So we want to just make sure that all your bags do get moved. There also are some weight limits. On the TMB, it's about 33 pounds. And then in Switzerland, it's closer to 50 pounds. And all of these details will be spelled out again in your tour packets. So if you're on a guided tour, those tour packets get emailed to you. If you're on a self-guided tour, they will come in the mail. And I'm working on building all those now and getting them out. So they'll be coming your way soon.
I have just a thought on the carry-on too, which is that to bring your trail running stuff in the carry-on, right?
Yeah, so if you have a really complicated itinerary, it might be best to put a few things in your carry-on bag that just in case your luggage gets lost that you couldn't do without. So maybe your running shoes, your vest, your favorite piece of gear, that sort of thing. Worst case, most of the towns that you're headed to are going to be big enough that they'll have shops with the trail running gear that you would need. And then when it comes to things like poles, that sort of stuff, we might be able to help you borrow some things as well, if that happened.
Right, and your guide can help you with that, or if you're self-guided in the village notes that we prepare, in the village guides, you'll have that information, like good sports shops in town and things like that, right? And I would just say, don't bring your trail running poles. Don't try to bring your trail running poles into the cabin. Check those, because occasionally they get confiscated, at least in the U.S. by good old TSA. So that's a bummer when that happens. All right, I think we're down to the last of the top 5, right? Okay.
Okay, so this question is, what should I bring other than my running gear? So what else do I need? Quite often the runs are going to finish early afternoon, so you'll have a bit of time to relax. Some of the swimming pools or some of the hotels or the towns we stay in have swimming pools. So bring your swimming costume, bring a book. There's plenty of time before dinner to go for a walk or something like that as well. There might be a sauna in the hotel. In the evenings, people tend to wear not running clothes, as you might imagine. It's not super smart, but some other comfortable clothes for the evening, and perhaps another warmer layer in case we're eating outside that you want to wear.
When you're trying to eat outside a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that we love to do. Everyone loves to do in Europe. It's really nice. And don't forget that swimming costume.
Oh,
you can take you can take the Brit out of England, but and move her to Chamonix.
Swimsuit.
Sorry.
When I saw Steph was laughing.
Oh yeah, I missed that. That's great. Okay. That's okay. Emily's gotten me many times for different Americanisms, so there we go. It's all part of the Run the Alps life.
I'm going to just add another little bonus question that links back to running gear. How many pairs of running shoes should I bring? And I think whilst you might be fine with just one pair, it's not a bad idea to bring a couple of pairs of running shoes in case you get blisters randomly for some reason, even though you've worn them before, or if they get wet or if they get lost. So I think it's a good idea to have 2 pairs just in case.
And sometimes it's nice just to change into a different pair and wears differently, right?
Yeah.
Have we ever had anyone bring a pair for every day of the week? I don't think so.
They didn't make it public, if so. I didn't notice. I don't think so. Not when we've been talking about the luggage sizes.
Right, exactly. Not with those weight limits.
Yeah.
Right. Steph, what's your last top 5?
Well, I thought I'd just tag on to what Emily said real fast. We had a question about blister care if they occur. There's a brand called Compeed that makes these little blister like plasters that you can stick on your heel or wherever that blister is. In terms of preventative care, Squirrel's Nut Butter is a brand we all tend to use. It's just like a lubricant for your feet to hopefully prevent the blisters. And then my last top 5 is actually about final payments for your tours. Those are due 90 days before the tour starts, and our accountant will email you an invoice. A lot of people are asking if they've missed payments or whatnot. So don't worry, we'll let you know. If you need to make payments in installments or want to pay early, you can reach out to myself or our accountant Carrie directly, and she'll get you taken care of.
Great. Thanks for those useful tips. We're going to move on to the next round here. Are you both ready?
Ready.
Ready, Utah? So we're just going to share here each of our single favorite personal tips for those of you coming on a guided or self-guided trip this summer. So, Em, you wanna go first?
So mine's about training. Ideally, you want to be training, 3 to 4 months at least in advance.
Yeah.
And ideally getting that training to replicate as closely as possible what you're going to be doing in the Alps.
Right.
So that means a lot of uphill and downhill, and ideally on uneven or rocky terrain. If you can't do that, then you work with what you've got. Maybe you'll quit taking the elevator and go up and down the stairs in the office or your apartments or whatever. That would be really helpful. It's not just the uphill, it's the downhill as well. And if you want to avoid having, really painful quads muscles the day after your first big descent, then practicing going downhill or down lots of steps is really useful as well. So the other thing would be to try and get sometimes some consecutive days of training, because on your tour you're going to be running for maybe 6-7 days in a row. So if at some point, even if it's just Saturday, Sunday, you can sometimes do 2 big days next to each other. That's super really helpful, good as well. But yeah, trying to replicate in any way you can some steep and some rough ground. If you want a bit more information than what I've provided, which is quite general, then we've got our personalised prep programme, and we have our guide and coach Sam Hill, and also the athlete Meg McKenzie, who are our coaches there, and they can provide you a really specific training program that's actually tailored towards the exact trip you're on.
This is another thing, we've added this really just at our cost and to cover their time. And the idea is for those of you who may be a little concerned about the trip, both Sam and Meg really are absolutely wonderful.
And they know our tours really well, so they can make sure that it is what you need.
Yeah. So that's a good resource, and that's available for you at cost from us. Just drop one of us a note or email us through the website. Steph, what's your personal #1 best tip? The pressure's on.
No pressure. For me, I'd actually say it comes to thinking about packing. I think having the right kind of gear can really help facilitate a nice experience while you're over there. And I think that involves just having a few key pieces, clothes that dry fast. Like running clothes that dry fast that you can rewear multiple days. It means that you can pack a little lighter. I think having a favorite lightweight long sleeve that you can pull on, whether it's like the Patagonia Houdini jacket or just a general long sleeve is super key. And thinking about these items and all the way down to like the smallest things, like having some Ziploc baggies to prevent things from getting wet, such as your passport, your cash for the day, your phone, stuff like that will be real lightweight to stick in your pack while you're out there, as well as your favorite like medicines, like allergy meds or your go-to things if you feel like a cold's coming on after a long flight. The pharmacies here are wonderful, and you should be able to find everything you need in Europe, but I know from experience that sometimes it's just nice having your favorite little go-to items there. So yeah, just thinking about the packing in advance will just help you be pretty dialed in for the trip. Along those lines, some of the tours, there is opportunity to do laundry, like in Chamonix, for example, and Courmayeur have options. Some of the point-to-point trips, it really depends. So I would say in general, it's probably best to plan on not having access to laundry, and just making sure that you bring enough to, be comfortable that whole time. And again, comfort is super personal. So, foot care might be super important. So maybe you don't like re-wearing socks, that sort of stuff. So just really thinking about those things.
And I'll give my tip, which I have to tell a very short story to lead into, which is years ago in Switzerland, I was doing my first double vertical kilometer race, which is 2,000 meters of climbing in less than 10K. That's the technical definition. And I was having breakfast before the race in the race hotel in Chandelin, Switzerland. And I asked someone, est-ce que tu vas utiliser les bâtons? Are you going to be using trail running poles? And he looked at me, and in French he said, yes, and if you don't, you will die. Tu vas mourir. And I was like, I'm going back to my room for my poles. That's just like, this is years ago. I, of course, grew up in the States. I wasn't used to running with poles. Poles are for skiing, right? And I've come to understand how incredibly useful they are here. They make a huge difference. There's a reason why at races like UTMB, everybody's bringing poles. It makes a big difference. So I would really, if you are not used to using poles, I would consider buying a pair. As Em said, we like the BD or the Lakey poles, and trying them out and bringing them with you, or trying one of the pairs that we have here. I think it makes a huge difference. Let's see. So we're going to now go into your questions. Then after that, we're going to turn the tables a little bit, and we're going to ask you a question for you to email us that we're very curious about. That's really about it. So let's get into, and by the way, thanks. We got a ton of questions.
Yeah, that was really good.
It was really wonderful to see, so much, enthusiasm for the trip, and making sure you're as well prepared as possible. So I don't know, should we just go back and forth here?
Yeah.
And cover some of them?
Yeah, take turns.
And we should say, if we didn't answer your question, we tried to answer as many as possible. Some we've already answered in the top 5.
Yeah.
Others you'll find answers to in the Guide to Trail Running. If you're really concerned and you don't hear an answer, drop us a note, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, go for it.
Some tours, we stay in a mountain refuge. So the question is, what do I need for that dorm night? Because often you'll be in a shared dorm, so bunk rooms, basically. You will need to take a sleep sheet. So these are generally, the best ones are silk. They're really light. You can get cotton ones as well. And if you're fast packing on this day, so you're traveling with just your running vest and you fit in just a little bit more for the overnight, then you can put your sleep sheet in there. Other questions, do you need a pillow? Do you need a towel? You don't need any of that other stuff. It's just the sleep sheet that they use to make sure that you're kind of sleeping on your own clean sheets.
In your own space.
In your own space. But that's the only thing you'll need on a hut night. Generally, you can hire towels there as well. The duvet and the blankets and the pillows are all already on the bed.
So just to add on to what Emily said about sleep sheets, some of the huts will provide bedding for you, so you won't need to bring that sleep sheet. So we'll specify in your tour packets whether or not you'll need one.
The aid station
we
document.
have it. You'll be getting an aid station document like this, which conveniently is called A Night at a Hut Fast Packing in the Alps. So that is all the information there. Yeah, great.
A question about if the trails are going up, down, up, down, up, down throughout the day, or if it's just one big up and then one big down. It can be both, but more often it's going to be one big up of maybe at least 3,000 feet often, and then one big
Right.
down, because we tend to stay down in the valley bottom. So we often start the day going up and then
Right.
end the day going down. There's certain tours though that are a bit more rolling than that. For example, in the Bernese Oberland, it can be a bit more up, down, up, down. But things like the Tour de Mont Blanc are often, most days are up,
Yeah.
have lunch,
I
down.
would say it's pretty perfect, right? Like, stay in the village, walk around, see a quaint village in the Alps, have a good tough push in the
Yeah.
morning after breakfast to
Yeah.
a hut,
Yeah,
and then cruise down to your next village.
it is often like that. Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So let's see, Steph. What else do we have here? You want to grab one of the questions here?
Yeah, we had a question about Wi-Fi being available most nights. I would say most nights, yes. Some of the smaller villages, maybe not so much, or it may not be very strong. It might cut in and out. But for most of the time, you're going to have service everywhere you go.
Right. We're pretty wired here in the Alps,
Yeah.
I'd say. I'm going to pick up a question and answer here.
Go for it.
I want in on the action here. How important is it to know the local languages, or do many people in the region speak English? And I would say my answer goes for anywhere in the Alps. Don't worry about it. C'est pas un problème.
But at the same time,
Yeah.
it's nice to have a few. We've got some phrases, I think,
Exactly.
in the
Yeah.
handouts for you about just, bonjour, merci in
Yeah.
France, and just to know a few general phrases will add to your holiday.
That's super nice.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
absolutely. That
Yeah.
goes hand in hand with the fact that it's not at all a crisis, and it's nothing to worry about if you don't know a foreign language, Italian or German or French. But it's wonderful to greet
Yeah.
people. It's just a really nice gesture.
And it's part of the
right?
experience, isn't
it's
it?
totally part of
that.
the experience.
Yeah.
And if you feel excited, listen to Duolingo on your flight over or something else. And, if you learn even 10 words, I think most people really like it,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
Yeah, adds to your holiday.
Yeah. So, Em,
Yeah.
you want to go
Yeah,
next
my
here?
question is about something that a lot of people are concerned with, and understandably, about in a guided group, how does it work with some being faster, some being slower? And
Right.
it's always the case that some people are faster and some people are slower.
It is the case.
So, everyone's got to be willing to wait a bit, because for example, you might be faster on the uphills, but you might be slower on the downhills. So you'll be the one waiting at some point, but then you'll hope that other people wait for you at another point.
Yeah.
If you've got a guide, of course, they're going to help manage that. And they might say to people, oh, by all means, go on to the mountain hut up there. We'll see you there. But yeah, as it's a group trip, you've got to be ready to, not only wait for others, but support others as
Yeah.
well. Our groups always end up working like a team, which is a really fun part of the tour.
I will say our groups, guided and self-guided, I mean, self-guided folks almost always know each other, of course.
Yeah.
But the guided groups really bond really nicely,
Yeah.
I think. It's
Yeah.
one of the things I really like about our trips.
Yeah.
By the end of the trip, they're all really close.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And so it means, you go at your own pace.
Yeah.
Because that's, it's your holiday, but in doing so, you're still going to need to have some people waiting at certain points, or maybe staying for a bit longer in the mountain hut, for example. So it's manageable totally. And we always have some faster, some slower. Sometimes you might be faster on one day and then not the other day. So it's not,
Exactly.
it changes throughout the week, whether up or down.
And I have to share this. I mean, it's the season when a lot of people are thinking about trips right now. And the number one concern we get from people is, I'm scared I'm going to be holding up the group. I'm going to be the slowest person. I think that's probably the number one concern that we hear from people. To which I always say, just really don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We really stress in the orientations on the guided trips that it's not a race. We really want to take our time. We build in plenty of time in the itinerary each day for stops, taking the view and breaks. And the guide is moving back and forth and making sure everyone's good. It's a very nice feeling.
And it's another reason why we do actually grade our tours, so
Right.
that you do have an idea of what to expect and how experienced you should be for the particular tours.
Right,
Yeah.
right, good point.
Yeah.
Steph, what's next on the list here?
I'm actually going to toss this one to you. There's a question about if you're vegetarian and, you know, if there's enough food at the meals or whether you need to bring an extra protein powder or a recovery mix or stuff like that.
I've never had a problem at all. I'd say like 15 years ago, when I started trail running here more seriously, it was a little bit of an issue sometimes. Not these days, not at all.
No, I agree. It's probably a good idea to bring some protein powder, just perhaps for the end of your run, if you you know, before dinner as well, if you're worried about that. But you know, it's easy to travel with. But I also eat as a vegetarian, and I never have any problems.
Yeah. No. Not a problem. I'd say all
things have moved on in Europe.
Things have moved on. We have good veggie burgers here now. That's the good news. What else? You want to grab another one?
Yeah, so a question about injuries or illness. What happens if you're sick or you get injured? Sometimes that means that you can actually just skip a day or two of the tour and take transport round to the next day. Normally that is the case, and it's not uncommon, to be honest, because now and then someone will feel like they don't want to or can't run for a certain day, so it's possible on, I think, all of our tours that for you to take transport, which we can help arrange, onto the destination for the day.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that you're out for the tour if you have a really bad blister one day, or you know, something like that.
Right.
Means
Very
you're
common.
out for one day.
Yeah. I want to tackle this next one because I was laughing this morning looking. I think we all basically agreed it was the same thing, right? What's the number one item that people don't bring but wish they did? An adapter for your chargers, right? I've long since gotten over that, but for years it was like, oh, how much is left on my phone? Okay, going into airplane mode. Bring the Euro adapter.
Yeah.
Right.
We had a question about if spikes are needed for your shoes in some areas. Generally, I would say no. Emily, as a guide, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experiences, normally during the summer, even if there is snow, it's soft enough that you can pass through it with ease. So I'd say you can forego the micro spikes.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if, for example, there's a tour earlier in the year, we can again give you specific information to make sure you're prepared for that tour where there might be more snow. But if we don't mention anything, don't worry about it. There won't be significant snow.
There were some questions about your passport, where you should keep it. I would say keep it on you while you're running. So just put it in a Ziploc bag and stick it in your running vest.
Okay, right. Passports and identity cards and things like that are checked a lot more in the Alps, aren't they? I feel like it's pretty common. Yeah, so bring it along.
Yeah.
And on passports as well, I heard that there was a lot of demand and delays for new passports. Is that right?
We've been seeing articles about that.
Yeah.
So, and what you should have at least, what do they recommend? Steph, you know this, 6 months minimum?
I believe it was 6 months.
Okay,
Yeah.
on your passport validity. So.
Yeah, check if you need to reapply.
Yeah. Right.
Just to let you know, it's saying that it's about a 10 to 13 week processing time.
Okay.
Even expedited, it's 7 to 9 weeks.
Wow. Okay. So check your passport date, and if it should be at least 6 months after the end of your trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. We're wrapping up on all your questions.
I've got one more here.
Go for it. Yeah.
Is altitude training required?
Yes.
Now, it's generally not going to be an issue because we're not really going above 7,000 feet on most of our tours.
Right.
It's good. It would benefit you if you could do altitude training.
Right.
You know, people normally at around 5,000 to 6,000 feet is the height that athletes will do altitude training to increase the number of red blood cells and therefore oxygen capacity in their blood. But we've never had anyone get altitude sickness, even if they've come from the coast. So it would help you at some level, but otherwise you're not going to feel the altitude at the elevations that we're running at.
It's a little bit of a misconception, isn't it? We get that question a lot, people thinking we're going to high altitude.
No.
But no. We're not. So let's see, Steph, did you have anything else?
I had one last question about insurance and payments and whatnot. If for some reason you're not able to come, whatever the reason, even if it's an emergency right at the last minute, we highly recommend trip insurance to handle these unknowns. The closer and closer we get to the trips, we're going to have made non-refundable deposits to hotels and such like that. So, we always will try to work with you in whatever way we can, but trip insurance is going to be your best bet. It does get used every year. I help people, who typically have to submit some information for it. So we help you with that, and it's come up big. So highly recommend it. We send information about IMG insurance. You're welcome to use whoever though. And that's both trip insurance and rescue insurance is smart to have while over there.
Right. And it's horrible for us near a trip. I mean, it's bad enough to have an injury, right, or something come up in your life where you have to cancel. But because of the way we process payments with hotels, we've already spent your money, so we can't refund people within that window of like 60 to 90 days before a trip, and it's really unfortunate. So we really encourage people to get trip insurance. Really cheap to do and a good addition, right? I wanted to sort of we talked about posing a question for you, our audience. Our guests coming on trips this year, because we're always curious about you all. We'll learn a lot on our trips, but we're always wondering ourselves. We have a lot of conversations here about where in the Alps do we go next. So that's our question.
Where do you want to run?
Where do you want to run? We have Dolomites. We have lots of stuff here in Chamonix and around Mont Blanc and elsewhere throughout Switzerland. Send us a note. You've got Steph's email. Many of you have my email. You can email us through the website. Where do you want to go?
Where's next?
Where's next? Because we're looking at next now, considering possibilities. So that's our question for you. Fire us a note. We'd love to hear from you on that point. We want to, I guess we're at the point of beginning to wrap up here. And we wanted to close with some of the more unique either things that have happened or questions that we've gotten in our world here. Just get a little bit of a laugh as we wrap up here. So who wants to go first?
I can just share the lovely day out I had once when my group were really, really happy to be running around the Tour de Mont Blanc. We were near the end coming into Chamonix, and we're just running along, admiring the view, and a pretty fast, small guy was like, "Oh, excusez-moi, please can you let me through?" Okay, and very kind, bonjour, so we were bonjour. Yeah. And then once he'd passed, we realised that it was Kylian Jornet, and we're just like, "Oh wow, cool! He's just out for a run on the same trail as us on the same day," and yeah, that was cool. That
is trail running in Chamonix, right?
Happens,
that totally happens here.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
So, Steph, what's your interesting, quirky, bizarre tale?
Mine is also on the TMB route. I've been asked if you have to climb Mont Blanc while on your TMB route.
Thank goodness we go around it, not over it.
Around.
That would be full on.
Tour du Mont Blanc.
Maybe an alternate TMB someday.
Someday.
Yeah.
And I just want to share something that we've laughed about as a staff here for quite a while now. It's maybe a year ago. we also jump in and share the chat on the website, answering questions whenever we can, whoever's around. It's, I'd say, fairly informal. Anyway, one night, 10 o'clock here, things were winding down for me. I was about ready to get in bed. All of a sudden on my phone pops up a message from the chat on the website, and it says, "I think I need a helicopter rescue." I of course think, oh, this is one of my friends. This has got to be one of my friends. Nobody would do this on a chat on the Run the Alps website. But right, you can't be too sure. So I answered it very seriously, and the guy said, presumably it was a guy. He said, I think he was a guy.
Yeah.
He said, yeah. He said, well, right, because I shared all the screen captures later. Yeah. He said, what? I'm in above a town in Austria. I've done something to my ankle. I'm not sure if I need a rescue or not. And it was like, oh my God, this guy he's out there. He's out there. And of course, I immediately said, you need to call, and this is the emergency number anywhere in the Alps, 112. You need to call 112 immediately. I answered a question or two more, but that was pretty amazing. and to answer your obvious follow-up question, we never found out what happened to him.
Hopefully he called a helicopter rather than browsing our website.
Hopefully, right. And the reason is because of your article.
Yeah, we got an article on rescue in the Alps. So,
Emily wrote an article about rescue in the Alps on the Run the Alps website, and it ranks very high in Google. So this guy typed in helicopter rescue Alps and lands on Emily's article, finds the chat, and starts talking to me. Anyway,
it was quick, quicker than reading the article. Maybe if he'd read the article before.
Lesson learned. Be prepared. Yeah. I think that's it, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if we didn't answer your question today, we will follow up with you directly. So maybe just give us a couple days. We'll figure out, who we need to get back to. And also along those lines, your tour packets are coming, and those should also answer a ton of questions as well.
Right.
I can guarantee Steph is up very, very early every day working on all of this. She's working really hard.
Yeah, thanks Steph. Yeah. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you, Doug.
For all of your thank you. And thank you for joining us. If you have thoughts or comments too, or suggestions about other things we can add or how we can make this better, we want to hear from you, so drop us a note. And look forward to seeing you in the Alps. Okay, so we have to introduce two staff members who are here and have been very patient. You can see them both here. Steph, you want to go first?
Yeah, this little guy is Welly. He's a wire-haired dachshund, and he's 7 months old and full of energy.
That's a
common theme.
A common theme. And here we have the ambassador of joy and director of hospitality, Izzy Mayer. And you may actually see her on some of the trips when I swing by. And I want to point out that our neighbor here who loves Run the Alps, Marlene, has made these beautiful dog kerchiefs. If you have is that what you call them? I don't know.
It is now.
It is now. If you want one, we have a bunch of them. She made them just for fun. If you want one, email us the size of your dog, and I'll drop one in the mail to you. So there you go. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Izzy. Always good to end with the chaos of an animal.